It was my 19th birthday, a rather dark time for me. I had just broken up with my girlfriend and was not emotionally in the best of places. Unbeknownst to me, my friends had all showed up at my house and literally pulled me outside to try and cheer me up. We hit up a few bars, got kicked out of a club, and shuffled down the street in search of our next destination. Next thing I knew, we found ourselves in an underground EDM garage. Everything was getting very distorted at this point in my night. My vision swayed like a pendulum and all my other senses felt numbed. But among the blurry faces, blasting music and flashing lights, one thing stood out in the darkness. A girl who had been checking me out through the night was at the other side of the room, leaning over the bar. As she turned around, her piercing eyes locked with mine and a twisted yet seductive smile rolled over her face. She wore a white tank top and black leather skirt, which really showed her shape. Her hair was a deep crimson red and her pale white skin shined like the moon. Without me even realizing, as if my body was moving on its own, I was at the bar beside her. The mysterious girl pulled me in from my belt and softly spoke into my ear. "I can feel it." I slightly withdrew. Feel what? She rested her head on my chest. Despite the fact that she was whispering, every word was vivid, almost too clear. "Pain. I see it in your eyes. I see that even though you're with your friends, you're alone." "Yeah, well," I stumbled for a moment and continued. I've tried everything, but I still can't get her out of my mind. I just want to feel nothing." It was strange saying such things to someone that I just met. And perhaps it was due to my drunken state, but I found all of my subconscious thoughts trickling through and eventually making their way to my tongue. She ran her fingers from my shoulders down to my arms. "Perhaps you're taking the wrong approach." I felt a breeze, a sudden feeling of clarity as a mysterious woman took my hand. "I'm Monica. What's your name?" It's Jacob." And with that, we floated onto the dance floor. As our bodies pressed against each other, Monica eased in, playfully biting my left ear. "I can make you forget about her." She paused for a moment and looked up at me. "Tell me, Jacob, is that what your aching heart desires?" I wish I never knew her. I felt Monica's hands wrap around the base of my neck and our lips met midway. She straightened the collar of my shirt and said, "Let's get out of here then. My place." 3 weeks. I woke up the next day and carried on with my personal life. I mean, no hangover, no feeling of emotional weight or burden. There was just one thing that made me realize last night wasn't a dream. 3 scratch marks on my back. Monica was a freak. As the days went on, I thought less and less about my ex-girlfriend. Last I heard, her family was leaving town. Still, I just can't help this weird feeling I've been having lately. 2 weeks. My friends keep asking me how I'm doing. I went to class today and my buddy Sam came up to me. "Hey, Jake, can we talk for a moment?" I looked up from my books and beamed up at my childhood friend saying, "Of course, yeah, what's up?" Sam and I stepped outside and he looked at me with a worried expression. "I'm just checking on you. I'm happy that you're doing well and moved on from Melissa, but this isn't like you to let go so quickly." I looked at him quite puzzled and said, "Who's Melissa?" Sam laughed in disbelief and looked at me with a toothy grin. "You're messing with me, right? I'm guessing this is your new way of coping with it, huh?" Yeah, sure, Sam." I had no idea what he was talking about. As Sam began to walk off to his next class, I said, "There is one thing that's been bothering me, though." He turned around. "Oh yeah? What might that be?" I stood silent for a moment, contemplating whether I should tell him or not. "I've been having these strange dreams lately." 1 week. They started happening more frequently. Almost every night, some vivid, others distant. Sometimes I can hear people screaming, begging for their life. Other nights, I would just see myself trapped in a dark room with a rope dangling from a beam above me. And then I'd hear footsteps arrive at the door. The rusty doorknob would turn, but before the door opens, I'd wake up. My therapist continued to scribble on his clipboard, his eyes peering over at me.
And you're saying that you haven't had any traumatic events in the last year, correct?
Yeah, that's right, I replied.
I advise you take some time off from school and work. People can break under the immense pressure. It can be their environment or individuals around them, family, teachers, peers, even significant others. Okay, Jacob. Great start to our first session today. Perhaps we could get into more detail about your dreams the next time we meet.
He put the clipboard down. Dr. Richards read a doctor's note along with a prescription for some drugs that I was to start taking before bed. Okay, thank you, Mr. Richards. I got the next week off to unwind, and hopefully I'll be able to shake off these terrible nightmares. I hope it works, because it's getting to the point where I don't even know what's real or not. Also, these damn scratch marks on my back haven't healed, and they burn like hell whenever I get up. 4 days. It's getting worse. They're much more graphic than the previous ones. Before it was just screams, and now I see them. They're lifeless bodies as I stand over them, my body covered in blood. It felt so real. And then I wake up, though it feels like I was never asleep in the first place. I'm losing my mind. What is this happening to me? 0 days. I turned on the TV, switching through the channels. I can't remember the last time I slept. The meds weren't doing shit. I picked up my phone and looked for Dr. Richards' contact number, but stopped when a story in the news caught my attention. And another person has been reported missing, making it the 4th person this week. Police are advising not to stay outside late. My phone hit the ground. What I saw on the screen made me sick to my stomach. I could never forget those faces even if I tried. Their images burned into my memory. No, it can't be. Those were just dreams, right? I would never. It wasn't me. I began to scream as the memories of the last 3 weeks all came rushing into my head at once. I picked up the phone to call the police. And then I woke up. The smell of sawdust filled the chilling air, and the hollow sound of wind could be heard in the distance. As my senses slowly came back to me, I realized my body was soaked in cold. I squinted my eyes open and screamed at what I saw next. I was in a pool of blood resting on top of a dead body. In utter shock and horror, I sprang up and spent the next few minutes just trying to take everything in. I bent down and turned over the lifeless body. Her face was covered by her hair. I stood still for a moment, asking myself if I was prepared for what I was about to do. I delicately brushed her amber-colored hair off to the side, and my heart dropped. When I saw her face, a sense of familiarity flushed over me and the memories came flooding back. It was my ex-girlfriend, my sweet Melissa. Hot tears began to roll down my cheeks. What have I done? Through my tears of grief and guilt, I looked around the abandoned warehouse, and over to my left stood a door. Inside was a small room with no windows. In the corner there lay some tools, a stepladder, and a rope. While slowly picking up the rope, I looked up, and there was a large beam that ran across the ceiling. I stood there in the darkness, rope tied around my neck. The weight of what I'd done was far greater compared to what it was I was about to do. I jumped off a ladder with the rope tightening around my neck. As I began to fade out, I heard footsteps coming towards the door and the rusty doorknob began to turn. A woman stood there as the door slowly drifted open. It was Monica. That twisted, evil, maniacal bitch. She tilted her head to line up with mine and smiled. "You've done well, Jacob." Monica stroked my hair with a slight look of disappointment in her eye. "It's unfortunate that you had to ruin our little deal. You'd have gotten what you wanted. But it's okay. We can be together forever now." She turned around and walked away as my vision faded to black. Epilogue. The young woman and her friends stepped into the club. All of them paired up and went for drinks or danced the night off. All but one. Linda awkwardly stumbled onto the dance floor by herself and stood right in the center. She sighed. This wasn't the first time she got ditched by her friends. Just as Linda was about to leave, she heard a voice in the crowd. It was almost too clear. "Going so soon, darling?" A tall, handsome man walked up to her. Linda's heart skipped a beat. He wore a twisted yet seductive smile. "Don't take it the wrong way, but you look like you could use a friend in a place like this." "Yeah, I'm new in town. Nobody's really given me a chance yet." "Oh, no one but you." The man had extended his hand out to hers. "I'm Jacob." She licked her lips and smiled at him. "I'm Linda." And with that, he took her hand.